Hello, and welcome to my video on Badlands basing. Like you can see on this orc boss here, I'll be going step by step on how to achieve this finish from start to finish. I'll be using this Vallejo texture paint along with Martian Iron Earth from Citadel and a ratty old brush to apply it with. You can use any texture paint you want. These are just the ones I had on hand. Now I do recommend using an old brush that you don't really care about because this stuff will ruin your brushes. So go ahead and just dab it on there. You can pile this stuff pretty high. I like the Vallejo stuff because it works really well and it's a fraction of the price of the Citadel product. I haven't yet found a good substitute for the Martian Iron Earth that seems to work the same way, however. So you can see here, I'm kind of just dabbing it on semi-randomly to give the impression of a natural Badlands floor. And then here I'm going to add the Martian Iron Earth. And with this stuff, you really want to go heavy to get the big crackles. Of all the crackle paints from GW that I've used, this is the one I like the most. It's the most intuitive. When you go thin, it has smaller crackles. When you go thick, it has thicker crackles. And you can really go pretty heavy with this stuff. So I like to pile it, maybe a 1/16 or even an 1/8 of an inch high. You can really go heavy, like I said. Now the problem with the crackle paint is it doesn't like to adhere to the base. So what I like to do is take some of this super thin, Instacure super glue and take a little pipette, mostly because my nozzle actually glued itself shut. So I have a little pipette where I'm gonna just guide it into the cracks here. And being super thin, it should settle down into the cracks. I do like to dab it a little bit with a paper towel when it's still wet, just to make sure that it doesn't pile too high and ruin the crackle effect. Something I discovered about doing base paints is really you can paint them however you want. So I'm mixing half and half Hobgrot hide and Xandri dust, just exactly 50-50, a little bit of water to thin it down, and painting over the whole thing. It will probably take a couple coats, especially on the red from the Martian Iron Earth, but once you're done, it'll all be a nice uniform color that we can highlight and apply pigment powder to. For the highlights, I'm just using this Vallejo game color. I think it's Elfic Flesh, but you can use any color you want. I'm using this kind of ratty old dry brush. I think it's from the Army Painter, or you can also use this round eyeshadow brush from the dollar store that my wife got for me. Those work great, but I kind of like the sort of scratchier finish that you get from the more typical dry brush. So I'll just dry brush some of that on the high spots, like so. For this step, I'll be applying pigment binder and pigment powder. The binder is nice because it's got a long open time and it gives you a lot of time to push around the pigment powder and sort of brush off the excess if you like. You can also use a flat clear coat if you want. but you'll have to work a little bit more quickly. I'm using the same ratty old brush, again, because it doesn't really matter. You just have to get a bit on there. Get it wet so that the pigment powder will stick. For the pigment powder, I just take a little bit on another one of those makeup brushes and sort of just tap it onto the wet base over this tray so I can retrieve it later and reuse it. I've actually managed to do something like 6,500 points worth of minis in a similar sort of scheme just with this one bottle of pigment powder, and as you can see, it's really only half full still. So then we're going to dry brush a little bit of the excess off after a couple minutes, letting it sit there, just to whatever extent you like. But I like to be able to see the highlights underneath, so I like to get most of it off. So finally, for the last part, we're just going to hit the base on the edge with some black. I'm using Abaddon Black from Citadel, but you can use whatever you like. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and if you have any questions, just feel free to leave a comment and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.